What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Dolphins In Depth podcast. I'm Daniel
Playoff
Oyefusi,
edition.
playoff edition. That is a very enthusiastic David Neal. Thanks so much for tuning in. Quick reminder before we start, make sure to subscribe to the Miami Herald YouTube page, like, share, comment, as well as subscribe to the Miami Herald. Now, your Miami Dolphins had a big regular season finale last Sunday, primetime stage, hosting their division rival, the Buffalo Bills. It was for all the marbles, everything on the line. AFC East title, conference's number 2 seed, a first round playoff game, and your Miami Dolphins fell short. A 21-14 home loss gives the division crown to the Buffalo Bills, and it sends me to Kansas City this weekend, where the Dolphins will face the defending Super Bowl champions, the Kansas City Chiefs. The Dolphins enter the postseason on a 2-game losing streak. A bruised and battered team. We got 3 guys on injured reserve Tuesday afternoon. We've got 3 guys coming in to add some depth. They're a bruised and battered team, but they're gonna try to pull off a big upset in the elements. We're gonna get to that. It's gonna be cold, long johns. My mom must have known something because she gave me a fleece set for Christmas, and I was like, I'm in Miami. Like, why do I need the fleece? But she must have known something.
No,
So
no,
I'm
no,
gonna
no.
put
She
that to
knows
good to
she
you.
was being a mama.
That too, that too. But I'm gonna put that to good use this weekend for sure. We got a lot to talk about for the Dolphins as we transition into the playoffs. Again, a big game on the road against the Kansas City Chiefs. We're gonna start with Sunday's game again. 7-point loss down to the wire. Dolphins enter that game, or they entered the fourth quarter of that game with a 7-point lead. It's 14-7, but the second half, the offensive kind of sputters a lot. The defense, which is just losing guys left and right, they're not able to get enough stops on Josh Allen. Though I think they played well considering the circumstances. And now you have a situation where they have to go on the road. And I actually asked McDaniel after that game, why is this? I framed the question with the caveat that they were 9-3 entering after the first week of December and the number 1 seed in the AFC. And I asked, why is this team in a position now where instead of hosting playoff games, they are traveling and being hosted? And he said, frankly, I don't have a concrete answer right now. That's something for maybe the end of the season. We are going to break that down why they are in that position. I think that Sunday's game wasn't so much. It was about Sunday. It was about what happened that game, but it's really about what we've seen over the past 4 or 5 weeks with this team on both sides of the ball. And, I think similar to the Baltimore game, there's blame to go around. Um, but we have these consistent themes where I'll start with the defense because I think that's the easiest unit to break down right now. And this just seems like a group that is like just reaching its limits. We talked about the injuries to Jalen Phillips back in November. Bradley Chubb goes down. Now you got Andrew Van Ginkel is out. Jerome Baker comes back, and now he's broken his wrist. Xavier Howard's not going to play on Sunday. Hasn't played the last couple of weeks. Like they've lost so many guys that they fundamentally can't do what they were all brought together to
Right.
do. Now that's why I said, given the circumstances, for them to hold the Chiefs, or excuse me, the Bills to 21, well, really 14 points,
14
to
points.
force 3 turnovers, 2 of them which came in the red zone. I think that, it's hard for me to put much on the defense. Obviously, they even got the late stop on the fourth down. I think they got the offense the ball back before Tua threw that game sealing interception. So it's hard for me to place. I mean, obviously, like they can be played better, but it's hard for me to, overly criticize a unit that has been hit so much by injuries. And now you got 3 linebackers, Cameron Good, Andrew Van Ginkel, Jerome Baker. All those guys are on IR. And now they got to bring in 3 veteran outside linebackers who were at their house 24 hours ago. It's tough for me to place too much blame on that because my expectations for that unit have changed.
Well, if they were healthy and you said they were fully healthy and you said, okay, season finale against Buffalo, you're going to get 3 turnovers. Now, and they got the 3 turnovers, but Josh Allen was being Josh Allen, and he
Yeah.
was he was serving them up. And you're going to hold them to 14 points. You just said, oh, great, fine. And the defense did their job
Yeah.
Sunday night. The previous week, Lamar Jackson has been play, playing at a breathtaking level, where people are, running out of adjectives to unpack over the last month, and that's a team that seems to have they found their right pieces to put around Lamar, and he's healthy late in the season, and they were just playing well. Yeah, you don't mean 56 points, 56 points, and yeah, they didn't play well, but it wasn't. I hesitate to say there's not much they can do about it, but
It was one of those games. It was one of those games.
they really
It
really
was.
didn't seem like there was much they could do
Yeah.
about it. I mean, and um, you don't want the Tennessee situation to happen. That just can't you can't allow that. I don't think as a defense. You got to somebody come up with a stop. I mean, that's a team collapse. That's a team collapse. But defensively, you can't. You've got to against that quarterback and that team that's kind of not really going anywhere, and you've got everything on the line. No, you've got to get a stop. For Pete's sake, you can't let them promenade down the field, which is pretty much what they did. It was all but holding their hand, and so. But right now they are, as you said, they're a very banged up group. You can next man up all you want, but there's a reason starters are starters, and there's a reason second stringers are second stringers, and there's a reason guys who aren't on teams were, spent most of these fall Sundays, on the couch like most NFL fans. So, it's a really, really tough situation going into this game. But yeah, I mean, I think Sunday they did their job. You can't. It's find it hard to fault them. Your offense gets 57 yards in the second half, and your special teams gives up, a punt return from
That was the
Maryland.
that was the game changer, and that was an
Yeah,
interesting sequence because on the last defensive possession, Christian Wilkins got the strip sack on third down. He recovered it. I think the very next play, the last play of the third quarter, the Dolphins get a big 15-yard completion to Tyreek Hill, but then they get a couple penalties. They're not able to convert, and then before you know it, you're kicking back to the Bills, and then they get that punt return touchdown. And then after that, it was like, all right, like you're like, all right, the tide is shifting now. And
right,
obviously the Bills, ran with that momentum, and the Dolphins weren't able to stop the bleeding.
right. And it's I think two of the three Sunday night, clearly of the three phases of this game of the game, the defense wasn't the one that failed you. It's the offense and it's the special teams, and the offense has to play better, and they have to produce more in any situation for Pete's sake than that. And special teams, you can't allow that. You can't allow that. You can't allow a guy to turn what is generally a bad play. It's like such a bad play that I think Dallas under Tom Williams used to fine guys, for fielding a punt back there, even if they took it all the way back. That they'd let a guy turn a bad play into a great play, into a game-changing play. You can't have that happen. And like I say, it seemed like after the Bills adjusted to what the Dolphins were doing offensively,
Yeah.
the Dolphins just kept going, what? Why is it not working anymore? It's not working anymore. Why is it not working anymore? It's not working anymore. Why is it not working anymore? Before they figured anything out, it was 21-14 and the clock struck 0. And they're headed to Kansas City.
Yeah, the offense is interesting because I've seen fan reaction placing blame in various spots, and I know Mike McDaniel has taken some criticism for I mean the Dolphins only ran 17 plays in the second half, 57 total yards, I think 3 first downs. McDaniel's taken some heat from the play calling. Tua is obviously taking some heat for his 2 interceptions, especially the one at the end of the game where he was targeting Chase Claypool and kind of stared him down. Tyreek is taking some blame because he had a big drop. And I'll say I've leaned away from criticizing the play calling. I think you can criticize play calling in some spots. But I feel like there's that's so like Monday morning quarterback. Like it's so easy to say, oh, we should have ran in this spot. He should have thrown in this spot. Like, yeah, it's easy to say that when the plays don't work. However, I will say there were plays to be made on Sunday that the Dolphins players just didn't execute and play. And I think that the most glaring one was 2 plays before Tua threw his interception. Tua hits Tyreek in stride, right where it needs to be, for what looked like, if he would have caught it, would have been a game time touchdown. Because I don't know, I think he would split the defenders. I'm not sure if any of them would have been able to chase him down. Instead, he drops it. The next play is an incompletion. Tyreek takes a hit, and then he has to go on the sideline. And next thing you know, Tua is trying to throw to, Braxton Berrios, Chase Claypool, guys who doesn't have that same chemistry he has as with Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. And then, it's a bad route by Claypool. It's a bad decision, a bad throw by Tua, and that's game over. They've dealt with injuries. I think that they have definitely missed Jalen Waddle and Raheem Mostert these past 2 games, and it looks like they're going to be back on Sunday. But I still say, like, there have been opportunities to make plays, and again, it goes back to, like, it's not just about Sunday; it's about what we've seen over the last month or so. It's that in key moments, there's been opportunity to make plays, and guys haven't done it. Kind of going big picture with it. The Baltimore game, that's a bad loss. That's a terrible loss, especially given what was on the line. But okay, it happens. But like you said, you can't lose. Like the Dolphins shouldn't have been in this position where they are fighting for the number 2 seed on the final game of the regular season. The Titans game can't happen. You know, we say it happens, but that can't happen, especially, 14-point lead in 3 minutes. That can't happen. There were opportunities to win this game on Sunday. I mean, the first half, really the first half, where Josh Allen throws two interceptions, just making bad decisions. They only get 7 points off of all the fourth down conversions. They didn't get it off of the turnovers. They only get 7 points. And as much as McDaniel, like, of course, he's beating himself over play calls. We can beat him up over play calls. There's been plays to be made, and the Dolphins just haven't made it. It feels like that's like, as much as the injuries have impacted them and whatnot, there's been opportunities, and I feel like that's the reason why the offense, or at least why we're looking at them going on the road. I lean more to the execution of the guys rather than the play calling. Could they have ran more? Of course, but when you only have 17 plays, there's not a lot of opportunities to run the ball. And like you said, the Bills made the adjustments. I don't think the Dolphins, executed, following those adjustments.
Well, part of the reason you always say, well, maybe if you at least kept distracted them a little bit with attempting to run the ball.
I mean, you only got 17 plays. I looked back.
You may have more than 17 plays.
I mean, if you go play by play,
no, I know situationally,
end of game
right,
situation, you're back second and 30. Like, there's not really a lot of chances to run the ball.
Right, situationally, it makes sense. It makes sense.
If Tyreek catches, I'll put it this way: if Tyreek catches that pass at the end of the game, and it's a tie game, I don't think a lot of people are complaining about Devon Achane only getting 2 carries in the second half.
I don't know about that, because I think that
the outcome is probably.
I think fans are a little savvier than they used to be, just because of they have so much information, and fans think about things differently. If nothing else, they're thinking, this is my fantasy team. You gotta give them the ball, and they notice. And I think fans notice things like that a little more more quickly than they used to.
But it's easy. I feel like that's a cop out. It's easy to say you should have ran more.
Daniel, don't tell me that you didn't sit. Daniel, don't tell me you've never covered a game and you sit there and as you're covering the game, as you're covering it, you're going, you're going into a play and you're thinking, okay, they should probably do X, Y, or Z, or geez, I might think about
yes, but after the fact, when I looked at the stat sheet, I kind of looked at it. I said there was an absence of the run game, but when you really look at it, I don't think Mike McDaniel made this like concerted effort to like try to throw the ball and keep in mind the Bills made the adjustments. Like the right. Dolphins ran that little pitch like 15 times in the first half, and they didn't do it. They didn't attempt to do it a lot, but when they did, the Bills were all over that. So, I
Right.
mean, again, you got to give Buffalo credit for making adjustments, but I keep on saying there were plays to be made that the Dolphins just like Tua he missed Tyreek on some throws. He made some bad decisions where if there's better execution, we're not having this discussion and we're not maybe complaining. I feel like the run game sometimes, okay, there's cases where I'm like, all right, maybe you should have had a different tactic, but it feels like every time the Dolphins like don't do it, it's like, all right, they should have run the ball more. Like that would have solved everything. Like I don't in this game, I don't think that's necessarily the case. It would have been better if they could run the ball and be effective, but I don't want to say that's the reason why the offense sputtered. Like they
No, you
didn't
can't.
they didn't
No,
execute at all in the second half.
no, I don't think, but it's like, like most sputtered. I mean, I don't think they moved enough for sputtered. I mean, that they, like most, it was more like a crash, and very similar to, for example, when planes crash, there's never one thing that goes wrong. There's like five or six things that go wrong, and in this situation, and with most situations, with when teams have a horrible second half like that, a unit has a second half like that, there there are several elements that go into it. Everybody wants, especially fans, love the single shooter. They want because then it's an easy fix. You fix that. Don't change him. Sub him. But it's very rarely the single shooter, and so you have several things that go into go into that. So yeah, there's execution. I think execution, play calling, just football's also such a domino game where you if you convert on this play, this gives you
And
another.
and and a perfect example of that was I think it was first and 15 after a false start penalty. It looks like Tua completes a low pass to Tyreek. Instead of 2nd and 1, it's 2nd and 15 after the challenge reversal. And then, they throw the ball and they get a decent gain, but they get a blindside block. And then 2nd and 30. And then it's like, all right, like if you would have
Right,
just,
right. Now
thrown a better
yeah,
pass, 2nd and 1, you can open up the entire playbook. Maybe you take
right,
a field goal, maybe it's a tempo, like it's, like you said,
right.
there's that domino effect. So a lot of things have to, like you said, a lot of things have to go wrong in order to have what we have. I mean, again, there was a prime opportunity. I mean, it looked like we got off to a little bit of a slow start in that game, and then when Chang scores on the 25-yard run, you're like, all right, like if like it's like every time the Bills they made a play, the Dolphins were able to make a play in the first half, and even down to the final seconds when Jerome Baker kind of stonewalls Ty Johnson, and then instead of a tie game, they go in there with a 7-point lead, and you're like, all right. The Dolphins are looking good. And even after Christian Wilkins got the strip sack, and then they start that drive and they end the third quarter with a nice chunk game, you're like, all right, shoot, if the Dolphins get one score, this might be it. Because the Bills, for all they were moving the ball, they weren't
They were
converting when it mattered
right.
most.
They
So,
weren't turning any points.
the Dolphins were in control for most of that game, really, up until the punt return touchdown. And then that's when, all right, like really they lost control of that game. Because even with the offense struggling in the second half, the defense was getting enough stops to keep them at bay. So like you said, a lot of things have to go wrong in order to kind of have the result that we had. And a lot of things have to go wrong in the final month to be where we're at. Because again, a month ago it was 9-3, first seed in the AFC. We were talking about, hey, could the Dolphins potentially host all their playoff games at home? Instead, if they want to make a long postseason run, probably gonna have to go on the road, and that starts in Kansas City on Saturday night. So it's gonna be a daunting task, but they're gonna go at it this weekend. We're gonna take a short break, but when we come back, we're gonna discuss that daunting path, which starts in Kansas City. It's gonna be cold. We're gonna talk about the impact of that, keys to the game, as well as give some predictions. So stay locked with us, and we'll be back soon. What's going on, everybody? Still here on the Dolphins in Depth podcast with David Neal, talking all things Dolphins. Now, in the first half, we discussed the Dolphins' regular season finale loss to the Buffalo Bills, a loss that dropped them to the 6th seed, where they are set to play the Kansas City Chiefs on the road in the wild card round. There's a lot of talk about the matchup. It's a rematch of a Week 9 game that was actually played in Germany, not Arrowhead, and it ended up being a 24-14 loss for the Dolphins. But now they're in Arrowhead, and with that comes the elements of the Midwest. A lot of talk around this. The Dolphins are set to play in their coldest game in franchise history. Interestingly enough, the previous coldest game in team history was in Kansas City. They played a game in 2008. It was 10 degrees at kickoff. The Dolphins actually won that game. The warm weather boys up in Miami, down in Miami, they actually won that game 38-31. But this game is going to be even colder. I spoke to a Kansas City-based meteorologist that works for the National Weather Service. Actually wrote an entire story. So definitely check that out on the Miami Herald website about the conditions. He said that by kickoff, 7 p.m. local Kansas City time, expected to be around 12 degrees, and by the end of the night, it could drop down to about 8 degrees. However, it's gonna feel like it's anywhere from -5 to -10 degrees because of the wind.
Ooh, wind
Um,
chill vector.
yeah, might not. Looks like we're not going to get any snow, any precipitation, but shoot, that cold is enough. Uh,
No, no, it's too cold to snow. It is literally too cold to snow.
see, I didn't even know
You
that.
don't see snow at that. You don't see snow at that temperature.
Yeah, I didn't even know all that. So it's gonna be cold. It's gonna be brick. That's what you need to know. We talked to I was the resident weather question guy at Miami Gardens in Miami Gardens on Monday. I asked Mike McDaniel, asked some of the players. All of them downplayed it. Durham Smythe, tight end Durham Smythe. He said, "Hey, like it's not like everyone here has lived in Miami their entire lives. A lot of these guys grew up in this type of weather. We all remember the "I wish it were colder" shirts that Mike McDaniel and a lot of the players wore last year. I don't know if they're gonna break out that again. But Mike McDaniel said, "Hey, we both got to play in the elements. Um, we got to start off with how much of a factor is it?" And I gotta, add some background. I've seen some various stats about the Dolphins in cold weather games. I saw something like they're 0-10 in the last 10 games played under 50 degrees. But I don't know if that's necessarily right because I saw some games recently where I was like, it definitely wasn't 50 degrees, like in San Francisco last year. However, the Dolphins under Tua Tagovailoa are 1-4 in games in which the kickoff temperature is 50 degrees or below. He's had some struggles. We remember his second season Tennessee Titans in Tennessee to clinch a playoff berth. He struggled in the rain, he struggled in the elements. However, he's also had some good games. We all remember last year's regular season game in Buffalo. It was extremely cold. We got some snow at the end of that game. I thought that was one or two as better games. I thought that was kind of a narrative busting game in terms of, the Dolphins and cold weather. But, questions are coming back. They're not concerned by it. Are you concerned about it?
Uh, the reflex is, of course, to say, hey, to lean toward the team that lives in that weather and has more times playing that one.
The
But
Chiefs
here's
don't
the
live
thing:
in this type of
yeah,
weather.
no, yeah. When it gets a certain level of cold, nobody's comfortable.
That's what the
No,
meteorologist said. He said,
yeah,
"Shoot, I'm from the Midwest. He said, that's
no,
cold to
no,
me. He said, I can't tell the difference
yeah,
between
nobody's.
-3 and
I,
-8 degrees."
I covered Green Bay against the Giants in the ice. I called it Ice Bowl 2. That for a while it was like the third coldest game in NFL history, and you know who nobody there was comfortable. I mean, those were two theoretically cold weather teams, and they're both freezing out there. Um, but and in that game, big plays were made. Uh, it's not as it's no fun for the kickers. I mean, that you feel like
Yeah, yeah.
you're kicking a
Freaking
a
rock.
rock. Yeah, and
Shoot, how
a
about
big
catching the
gnarly
ball?
rock. What?
I said, how about catching the ball?
Uh,
Like,
it depends on how that ball comes.
so
Uh,
Smythe said something interesting where he said, unless it's like raining or anything like that. Like I was thinking about it because it's funny because the Patriots played in the snow in their regular season finale against the Jets, and Ezekiel Elliott was like, I always wanted to play in the snow growing up, and my first time playing in it, like the experience sucked. And I actually asked him like, which would you most prefer to play? Like, if you have to deal with any of the elements, what would you rather deal with? And it feels like for most players, they'd rather at least deal with the rain because
yeah,
you have trouble with your footing, you have trouble with your hands. You got to ditch the gloves. Snow is a little different. Like you can get busy in snow. You have to worry about the footing, but you can get busy. When it's cold, it's like it's just cold.
yeah,
Like it feels
yeah,
like more of a mental thing than physical.
and
Obviously, physically, you're
well,
going to be impacted. but it feels
right.
like more of a mental thing in terms of like persevering through it.
It and it pretty much is, and also it's one of those things. Once you get really going in the game, I'm not saying you don't feel it, but
You can tolerate, you can
you're
manage it a little bit more.
yeah, you're feeling a lot less than like Bob sitting in the stands, Bob and Jameis
Yeah,
up there with just sitting there trying to pound enough
beer.
coffee laced with liquor to get feel good and get through it. Um, but yeah, I mean, we've seen some great offensive games in the cold. We've seen great offensive games in the snow. That Dolphins Chiefs game was 38-31. I mean, it was. I remember watching that. It was an up and down the field game, and I so I think maybe it takes a little bit of the edge off speed, if anything.
That's it.
Uh,
Yeah. The
it could,
question for me is the wind. That's the one thing that stood out to me because he said winds are going to
yeah.
be 15, anywhere from 15 to 20 miles per hour. He said that might impact, he said it might impact, what side you pick at the coin toss to make sure you're kicking into the wind, you're throwing and passing into the wind. That's the one thing that sticks out to me because obviously the Dolphins are a high flying team. They like to throw the ball. And I don't like to bring it up much, but Tua doesn't have the strongest arm. He can get it there, but
Right.
it's not Patrick Mahomes, it's not Josh Allen. So that's my one question. How
On
much
the
is the wind gonna impact the passing game? Because it might be if it's gonna tangibly impact the passing game, then that we gotta focus on the run game. We're talking about the run game in the first half. They might have no choice but to run the ball if the wind is gonna impact the passing game that much.
and if that's the case, the Dolphins, that might be the Dolphins' favor, frankly. I like their running game better than I like Kansas City's running game going against the Dolphins. And also, while it doesn't, they put it this way: Tua's passes will feel better when they get to the receiver, than at least if the stronger arm has the wind on cold days. Yeah, that's not always a fun pass to catch when it gets there. It can take now that wind can take a little bit of the edge off otherwise, but it also obviously unless you know how to kind of adjust and account for it, it can hold the ball up.
Yeah,
It
pregame
can
warmups are gonna be
you
are gonna
just
be huge in terms of like
yeah you better
throwing balls to the wind,
watch
kind of getting a
right
sense of the timing because the
right
timing is so important for those deep passes. So
right
that is
timing's
something. Go
yeah
ahead.
I mean, timing's important for even the Dolphins run a lot of those
Quick hitters.
medium crosses and everything. And you, you know, like you say, the wind holds it up a little bit, and suddenly it's that half second, and that ball that's in front of Jalen Waddle, usually are hitting him right in stride, is now maybe an arm's length behind, and he's got to twist to make a good catch, or it he's got to slow down. The DB catches up. Yeah, I mean that's the wind affects passing games, rain affects passing games. Snow, cold. I've seen a lot of good offensive games in both. I mean, there's and also if you're talking really cold, this might seem strange, but who the quarterback with the bigger hands, that quarterback's going to have an advantage.
I mean,
Like
I
when
was gonna say I don't have Tua and Mahomes' hand size, combine hand
Dan,
size
Dan,
on my to
Dan,
memory. So
well, going back in deep into history, the Freezer Bowl game, Dan Fouts and Kenny Anderson, the two. Fouts was racking up yards like crazy, and he set all the seasonal passing records for yardage that Dan Marino eventually broke. Kenny Anderson was out there, completing 65-70% of passes when everybody else completing 55 to 60. And the Bengals won the game 27-7. Fouts said, I couldn't get a great grip on the ball. It was so cold. I could never really get a great grip on the ball while Kenny Anderson could, and he had a solid day. Um, I think that can, especially if you're talking, wind and having to, maybe control the ball even more than you usually do. Uh, but this game, if the win really hampers the passing games, as I said, I think this might help the Dolphins because I certainly, from what we've seen this season, like the Dolphins' running game better than Kansas City's running game. And even the Dolphins running game going against a very good Kansas City defense that's healthier than the Dolphins' defense. Kansas City just doesn't have their running game's very occasional. It's incredibly erratic. So, I kind of like I think the Dolphins can be a little more consistent in that, and they've got three backs they can, rotate in and keep fresh, and
Yeah,
yeah, that might play
this
their
was
game.
like a Jeff Wilson game. I don't know why. Like it feels like a 10
Yeah.
carry Jeff Wilson game. Like transitioning to the matchup on the field. Obviously, it's a rematch of kind of a midseason game they played in week 9 in Germany. 21-14 loss for the Dolphins. There's another game where they got off to a slow start. But the defense really kept them in that game. Tua has the opportunity for a game-tying drive. There's a miscommunication with Cedric Wilson, misses him for a game-tying touchdown. The next play, bad snap, fourth down, game over. Obviously, on the Dolphin side, there's been a lot of change personnel. We talked about how that Week 9 game was like, it's kind of like a milestone game for them. It marked like a real turning point because that was the first game that they had each of their projected defensive starters. That was the first game that Xavier Howard and Jalen Ramsey played together. But now, if my count is correct, the Dolphins are going to be without at least 4 starters. Bradley Chubb, Jalen Phillips, Jerome Baker, Xavier Howard, Andrew Van Ginkel, all are going to be out. Deshaun Elliott and Javon Holland are dealing with some injuries. Javon Holland kind of, it looks like he had a setback with his knees injury. He was limited in that game. So, and he, they put out an estimated practice report on Tuesday. He went into practice. Same with Deshaun Elliott with a calf injury that he, popped up in pregame warmups. He's dealing with stuff. So as it stands, the defense is not, it's not the same unit that it was in that Week 9 game. However, the Dolphins offense, if Jalen Waddle and Raheem Mostert are back, uh, it's going to be about as healthy of a unit as they've been all season. Now, they're not going to have Connor Williams, who I believe Connor Williams played in that Week 9 game. They're not going to have Isaiah Wynn, who they haven't had for, since Week 7. They've made the adjustments there, and I think they've gotten pretty solid guard play despite him. But outside of that, they're going to be whole. And, the Dolphins obviously into this game is road underdogs right now. I think it's 4-point dogs. But it seems like, especially after the wave of injuries, like McDaniel, opens up his Monday presser, and our own Barry Jackson is just like asking him about the latest injuries, and it's like one after another, out for the season, out for the season, out for the season. It felt kind of like a death knell, whatever you want to call it. But I think the Dolphins have a better chance than people are giving them. I don't. People are like, there's no way. Like, it's on the road where they struggle. They're 4-4 on the road. They're 1-5 against winning teams, which are all playoff teams they face this year. A lot of people are like, they have no shot, and I don't think that's the case.
No,
I,
I
I
think definitely think they have a shot. Yes, of course. I mean,
yeah.
it's no. Look, Kansas City hasn't looked like the team that we've seen since 2018 from them at all this year. I can't. I trying to think of a single game where they've looked like that team, where that you just said, okay, that's the Super Bowl team. That's the AFC's best team. I can't think of one game like that, and I can't think of a game they didn't look very vulnerable. Um, and yeah, I mean, if you go with the quick breakdown of, you know, which team's healthier, who's
That's the
who's
Chiefs
the
right
better
now.
who's the better quarterback,
That's
and
that's Mahomes, but the elements might make
and
it
right
negligible.
right who's the better quarterback? Well, I don't know about that. and
I
who
mean, if they're running the
and
ball
what's
40 times,
and what
that's
and
negligible.
where's your and who's the home team,
Yeah.
and who's the home team in a environment that can be
Oh,
can
it's
be
gonna be, it's gonna
very
be, it's gonna
very
be. I haven't been.
very
It's gonna be my first time in Arrowhead, but from what I've heard, it's going to be crazy. But I say that the reason
But
why I say I give them a better chance than people want to give them credit for is because if they're running the ball a lot, maybe they don't have to do all like the silent count based timing stuff with their emotions. Like if they're just snapping it and going downhill, maybe that almost plays in their favor. Like I think that the way
and
just the way the matchup is and the fact that like you said, the Chiefs haven't been the world beaters at all. I think this is a much closer game than people like the defense. The defense is not in good shape, and I think that they were able to contain. Like I think that was given the circumstances that may have probably been their best defensive performance of the year. It's not a great Chiefs offense, but they held them scoreless in the second half. They were getting pressure on them. They were holding down in the secondary. Fundamentally, I don't know if they can get that pressure on Mahomes that they got last game. But I think that
right.
if they have a kind of a similar performance as the Bills game, where all right, you might be giving up some yards, but you're getting key stops. Maybe you get a turn. Like I'm not counting on three
Yeah,
turnovers, but if you get some stops in the red zone, I think that the offense, as healthy as it looks like they're going to be on Sunday, um, I think that they can make plays. I think that I think it might come down to how well they can run the ball. If the goes back to if the win is a factor, there's so many unknowns in terms of
yeah.
that. But I
And
think that
also,
there's
I
a
mean,
there's a matchup for them to keep it close.
how many turnovers are the Chiefs receivers going to give you? I mean, those
Yeah,
those,
I
those
mean,
guys.
playoff games are weird. Like this is going to be the first. It's going to be the first playoff game with Tua, as starting quarterback. Obviously, he didn't play last year when McDaniel
Right.
took them to the playoffs in his first year. Games are weird and they can sway in both ways. If you get a early turnover or missed field goal or whatever it may be, especially on the road, it might kind of pile on you quickly. But on the other side of it, if you do get a turnover early and you do get some momentum, and you kind of go into halftime with a 3-point lead or a 7-point lead, like that stuff, it's one game and you're out. Weird stuff can happen
They
in the
they
postseason.
a and also a strong running game can, not just keeps the offense off the field. Okay, yeah, you still have to stop them when they get on the field, but yeah, it could shorten the game, but also it could, kind of suck some of that energy out of that place because
Yeah, nobody wants to be
it's
tackling a 240-pound Jeff Wilson,
right.
200-pound Raheem
It's
Mostert
cold.
when it's negative
It's
10
cold. That
degrees at
hurts.
10:30. Like
That
nobody wants
hurts.
to do that. Nobody wants
And
to do that.
and yeah, I mean, this is a winnable game for the Dolphins. I mean, like I said, you go through some of the major
It's
things,
an
and they
uphill
are beating
battle.
the
It's an
Chiefs,
uphill battle.
but
It's an uphill battle because we do have to
yeah,
acknowledge that they have not played well on the road and have not played well on the road against tough competition. It is an
right.
uphill battle,
It
but
is,
I don't think I don't think
it's
it's a game that they should be blown out. I think that this is a game that they
no.
should and will keep competitive.
I don't think they get blown out unless like Casey scores early, turnover Dolphins. Casey turns that into points. And Dolphins 3-and-out, big play Casey, and suddenly you look up and it's 21 or 17-0, and then you know, everything's the snowball has started downhill, or the boulder started downhill, and the Dolphins are the coyote. And I think that's the only way they get blown out. I don't see this being this kind of just systematic, you can't stop them and they can stop you, blowout. And which is what Baltimore was. Uh, so yeah, I think this is a game that's there for them. Again, this is not a game I would touch as far as a bet, because it is that there are so many variables. There are so many things that can come into play. Uh, you know, you lean toward Kansas City. You think they're better. You would think that they're a better coach team. Andy Reid's a more experienced coach. Mahomes is a more experienced quarterback, and arguably the best quarterback of this generation. Uh, they're at home in a great environment. Um, so it leads toward Kansas City. Again, as we said, though, there's all these things that can go very right for the Dolphins, and give them the game. I'd still lean Kansas City 24-20. maybe.
Oh man, we're right on the mark. That's what I was thinking. I was kind of saying like, do I want 24, 20, 21, 17? I'm thinking 24-20. I think that I mean the first game was 21-14. I don't think the Dolphins offense is going to get to as slow of a start. I mean, again, that play, I mean, that first game in itself had a huge swing with toward the end of the first half. Tyreek
Right,
Hill, in his first game against his former team, he gets stripped while the Dolphins are driving in a 2-minute drill, and that completely changed the momentum of the game. Instead of going into the half 14-7, 14-3, it's 21-0. So weird swings can change the tenor of the game. Obviously, that's going to be a big game for Tyreek. First game back at Arrowhead, he wanted to play that game at Arrowhead. Now he gets the opportunity to play
right.
back in his old stomping grounds. Justin Houston, one of the three veteran linebackers who the Dolphins signed on Tuesday. He spent the first 8 years of his career with the Kansas City Chiefs. Maybe a little revenge game there. I mean, the game it's kind of like house money. I don't want to say it's house money for the Dolphins, but they're not expected to win this game. Um, so you just kind of go in there and you just play it free.
But I think they expect themselves to win this game.
Oh, I mean, they expect to win every
No,
game,
no, of
but
course, but it's not like I don't think that. See, I think there's the house money games. I think are the ones where, even the players are kind of like, it's gonna be a tough one,
maybe behind closed
but
doors. But I don't,
yeah, right, but I don't think the Dolphins. I think the Dolphins are thinking, yeah, it's gonna be tough, but we got this. We can do
I mean,
this.
for as non-Chiefs like as Kansas City has looked this season, the Dolphins have a track record. We're not talking about narratives. Like I
Right,
don't like I almost like don't even want to like talk about narratives anymore. Like that's kind of annoying to me. I just want to go like off the track record, and the track record
right,
is the Dolphins are a team that when they've gone away from home, when they've gone on the road, the offense hasn't looked nearly as good as what they've been at home. There's
right,
a vast disparity in their offensive performances at home and on the road. You combine that with them facing a raucous environment that is going to, conceivably give them some issues in terms of communication and timing. Again, they have a track record that says that when they go on the road, they haven't performed extremely well. Now, I don't have any reason to believe that that's going to dramatically change. I do think that they can be a little bit better, but the Chiefs have a really good defense as well. Like the Chiefs went out
right,
there in
right,
Germany and they confused them, they out schemed them, they out executed them. Like that the offense might be a little shaky, but that's a top 10, a top defense in
right,
Kansas City. So they're going to give them troubles as well. Again, I think that there's a lot of people that are like throwing in the towel saying this game is no doubt, no way the Dolphins win this game. And I think it's more so because of the injuries on defense, and they are big, but I think that they still have some blue chip guys there that will make it tough. I do think they come up short. I think it's a low scoring 20-17 type game. But if the Dolphins win this game, it wouldn't overly surprise me because
right,
I don't think that like just head to head the Chiefs are that much better. I think that
right.
they have the home field advantage and they have the advantage of being a benefit of being a healthier team. But I don't think that they're just head and shoulders more talented and better than the Dolphins at this particular point in the season.
They certainly haven't shown it. I mean, they have the advantage of playoff experience at certain key positions. At other key positions, not so much. And so, yeah, I mean, this is a game that, like, would not, as you said, wouldn't overly surprise me if the Dolphins won it. Um, I think it should be there for them to win. But if your head's on a chopping block, and you gotta you gotta go with one team, or the blade comes down. Yeah, which way you're headed.
Yeah, I mean
But
the reason why they're 4-point underdogs,
right, right.
but but again,
This
four point under. That's not like an
yeah,
insurmountable. It's not like they're a touchdown or
that's
more.
take
The
out the home
Bills,
field advantage of one.
the Bills are 10-point favorites over the Steelers. Like that's a
Right,
game that they expect to possibly be a blowout. I don't think
right,
this is going to be a blowout. And hey, you can only look to last year. They don't have Tua Tagovailoa. They've got some injuries. No Raheem Mostert in Buffalo. They go up to Buffalo and everyone thinks they have no shot. They think it's going to be a blowout. And Skylar Thompson has the ball in his hands for a final drive, and he misses Tyreek Hill, for potential conversion to go and win the
Right.
game. They have Tua. They're gonna have probably the majority of their offensive starters, banged up defense, but I think they can keep it close. And hey, if some things bounce the right way, which could happen, weird things happen in postseason games. I think there might be an opportunity to steal a game, and then just keep on fighting to stay alive.
And then we'll be back here next week talking about another game instead of wrapping things up.
Yeah, I was gonna say this could be the final Dolphins in depth of the Dolphins actual season. We might be in the off season next week.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, who knows? We might be in divisional round mode next week.
Right. I know.
But we will still be here. We will still be here though.
We will be here.
All right, that brings us to the end of another edition of the Dolphins in That podcast. I want to thank you guys always for tuning in. A reminder to subscribe to the Miami Herald YouTube page, like, share, comment, subscribe to the Miami Herald. We got a big week. It's a short week because the Dolphins are playing on Saturday night instead of Sunday, but we've got a big week. We've already had a ton of stories go up since the Dolphins transitioned and moved over into preparations for the Kansas City Chiefs. We're gonna have a ton of stories tomorrow as Tua talks, as McDaniel talks, as we get assistants talking, various other players, injury updates. So definitely stay locked to the Miami Herald website for all your latest Dolphins updates. We'll be back next week. Whether it will be divisional round talk
we
or
don't know
off-season talk,
but we will be here.
we will be here.
We will be here.
We'll be back next week to recap another weekend of Dolphins football. But until then, you guys take care. See you.
Y'all be cool.